I'm Sarah Callahan, 39 years old, and I built my career from scratch, 22 years in the Navy, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, and the honor of leading sailors who trusted me with their lives. For years, I kept showing up for my family, sending money, writing letters, trying to earn the respect of a father who never once said he was proud. But at his 50th birthday party, when he mocked my service in front of everyone, I made a choice that changed everything. Have you ever been humiliated by someone you gave everything to? If so, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Before I get into what happened, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to stand your ground and claim your worth, hit like and subscribe for more true stories about boundaries and resilience. What happened next might surprise you. I stand at the edge of my father's lawn, champagne glass in hand, watching him hold court. Thomas Callahan at 50, silver threading through his dark hair, expensive watch catching the afternoon sun. He's telling the story again, the one about David's first big contract, how he closed the deal with a handshake and a scotch. The guests lean in, laughing at the right moments. My brother stands beside him, grinning that easy grin that's always come naturally to him. I've heard this story 6 times today. Mom moves through the crowd with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, smiling her careful smile. Evelyn Callahan, the perfect hostess, smoothing over every rough edge, filling every awkward silence. She hasn't looked at me directly since I arrived 2 hours ago. Sarah, my Aunt Carol waves me over. Tell us, are you still doing that military thing? That military thing. 22 years of service, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars. That military thing. Yes, Aunt Carol. Still serving. How nice. She pats my arm. And when are you going to settle down? Find a nice man? David's given your parents 2 beautiful grandchildren already. I take a sip of champagne. It's too sweet. My career keeps me pretty busy. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? She laughs, and it's not unkind, just dismissive. You can't build a family from a ship or a base or wherever they send you. Dad's voice cuts through the chatter. Sarah, come here a minute. I cross the lawn. The grass is perfect. He pays someone to keep it that way now that David's company is doing well. Everything about this house is perfect on the surface. New paint, new deck, new furniture in the sunroom. All of it courtesy of David's success. Yes, Dad. He puts his arm around my shoulders, pulling me into the circle of guests. His grip is tight. Everyone, this is my daughter Sarah. She's in the Navy. Been in for, what is it now? 20 years. 22. 22. Can you believe it? He squeezes my shoulder. I told her when she signed up, I said, Sarah, the military will chew you up and spit you out. Didn't I say that, Ev? Mom nods, not meeting my eyes. But here she is. Still hanging in there. He raises his glass. Still playing soldier. The guests laugh. It's a warm sound, friendly even. They don't mean anything by it. They're just following Dad's lead, the way people do at parties. I could correct him. Tell him I'm Navy, not Army. Tell him I made 6 years ago. Tell him about the commendation I received last month. But I've learned that correcting him only makes it worse. Still hanging in there, I echo and take another sip of too sweet champagne. This isn't new. This has been happening for years. The first time was at a family barbecue when I was 23, fresh from the academy. I'd tried to explain about my training, about the leadership principles we'd learned. Dad had listened for maybe 30 seconds before turning to David. So tell me about that new account you landed. At Thanksgiving 2 years later, I'd mentioned my deployment to the Mediterranean. That's nice, honey, Mom had said, passing the potatoes. Then Dad had launched into a story about David's promotion to regional manager. Christmas, when I was 30. I'd made lieutenant commander. Brought the official photo to show them, me in dress whites, the gold oak leaves on my shoulder boards. Dad had glanced at it. Very nice. David, show everyone the pictures of the new house. My birthday, my promotions, my accomplishments, they all became footnotes to David's story. And I kept coming back, kept trying, kept hoping that maybe this time would be different. That maybe if I just explained it better, showed up more often, proved myself more thoroughly, he'd see me. But he never did. The party continues around me. David joins our circle, and Dad immediately shifts his attention. There he is. The man of the hour, well, one of them. David just signed his biggest client yet. Tell them about it, son. David launches into the story, and I step back, letting myself fade into the background. It's a role I know well. I move toward the house, thinking I'll refill my glass, maybe hide in the bathroom for a few minutes. But I stop at the patio door, looking back at the scene. Dad's animated, gesturing broadly as he adds details to David's story. Mom's nodding along, proud. The guests are engaged, asking questions. No one's noticed I've stepped away. I think about the letters I used to write from my first deployment. Long, detailed letters about the ports we visited, the people I served with, the things I was learning. I'd pour my heart into them, wanting him to understand this world I'd chosen. Wanting him to be proud. He wrote back twice in 8 months. Both times, one paragraph. Glad you're safe. David's doing well. Take care. I think about the time his business hit a rough patch. I sent money, not a lot, but what I could spare on a junior officer's salary. He cashed the checks without comment. Never mentioned it, never thanked me. And when things turned around, he credited David for helping him restructure, even though David had been living across the country at the time. I think about every holiday, every visit, every phone call where I tried to share my life and got the same response, polite disinterest, followed by a redirect to David's achievements. And I think about how I kept trying anyway, because he's my father, and some part of me believed that loyalty and persistence would eventually break through. I was wrong. The glass doors reflect my image back at me. 39 years old, fit, confident in most areas of my life. But here, in this house, I'm still the daughter trying to earn her father's approval. Still the one who doesn't quite fit the image he wanted. I head inside, bypassing the kitchen where some of Mom's friends are arranging desserts. I find a quiet corner in the study, Dad's office. The walls are covered with photos and awards. David's college graduation. David's wedding. David's kids. A few family photos where I'm present but somehow peripheral, always at the edge of the frame. There's one photo of me in uniform, tucked on a side shelf behind a plant. It's from my commissioning ceremony, and I'm barely visible. Someone, probably Mom, put it there years ago, and it stayed there, gathering dust unnoticed. I should leave. Make an excuse, say my goodbyes, drive back to base. But something keeps me rooted here, glass in hand, staring at that forgotten photo. Maybe I'm waiting for something to change. Maybe I'm still hoping. Or maybe I'm just finally seeing clearly what's always been true. Outside, I hear Dad's voice rising over the others. You know what I always say, family and business. That's what matters. Building something that lasts. David understands that. He's building something real. And I think, so am I, Dad. So am I. But you've never asked what. The party hits its peak around 4 o'clock. More guests arrive, the catering staff brings out another round of appetizers, and someone starts music playing from speakers on the deck. Dad's in his element, moving from group to group, accepting congratulations and well wishes. I've returned to the lawn, staying on the periphery. I've perfected this position over the years, present but not intrusive, available but not demanding attention. It's easier this way. Less disappointing. Sarah, honey, could you help bring out the cake? Mom appears at my elbow, her smile tight. I follow her inside. The cake is enormous, 3 tiers, decorated with elaborate fondant designs. 50 and fabulous scrolled across the top in gold lettering. It's beautiful, Mom. David's wife ordered it. She has such good taste. Mom fusses with the candles, positioning them precisely. Could you grab those plates from the counter? I gather the plates, and we carry everything outside. The crowd parts for us, gathering around the main table. Dad positions himself at the head, beaming. Before we cut the cake, he announces, I want to say a few words. Of course he does. 50 years, he begins. Half a century. And I look around at all of you, at my family, at what we've built together, and I feel blessed. Truly blessed. He gestures toward Mom. Evelyn, my rock. 30 years of putting up with me. Everyone laughs. Mom smiles. And my children. David, his voice swells with pride. David has built an empire. Following in my footsteps, but going beyond anything I dreamed of. Making me proud every single day. David ducks his head modestly. The guests murmur approval. Then Dad's eyes find me. And Sarah. He pauses, and something in his tone shifts. Not quite mockery, but close. Sarah chose a different path. Decided the military was her calling. I told her, I remember this clear as day. I said, Sarah, the army will chew you up and spit you out. A few people chuckle. Dad grins. But she didn't listen to her old man. Never did, really. Stubborn, this one. Just kept at it, year after year. He raises his glass toward me. Still waiting to see if I'm right. Still waiting for the army to spit her out. The laughter is louder now. Friendly, indulgent. They think it's just good-natured ribbing, the kind fathers do. David's smirking. Mom's looking at the ground. Aunt Carol gives me a sympathetic shrug. And something in me, something that's been bending for years, accommodating, adjusting, trying to be small enough not to cause problems, finally reaches its limit. I open my mouth to respond. To correct him one more time about Navy versus Army. To mention that I'm not some junior enlisted hoping to make it through my first tour. To tell him that I'm a captain, that I command respect from people who actually know what service means. But I don't get the chance. The windows rattle. At first, I think it's thunder, but the sky's clear. The rattling intensifies and someone points upward. What is that? The sound builds, deep and rhythmic. Helicopter rotors. Close. Very close. The crowd parts instinctively, moving away from the center of the lawn. Mom grabs Dad's arm. David pulls out his phone, already recording. And then it appears over the tree line. A Black Hawk helicopter, navy gray, descending toward the lawn. The rotor wash flattens the perfectly manicured grass, sends napkins and decorations flying. People shield their eyes, backing away further. It lands smoothly, professionally. The rotors slow but don't stop. The side door opens. Major Brooks steps out, marine dress blues immaculate despite the wind. He scans the crowd, finds me, and crosses the lawn with precise military bearing. He stops 3 feet away and salutes. Admiral Callaha, he says, his voice carrying clearly over the engine noise. The president is waiting. Admiral. The word hangs in the air. I return the salute, crisp and exact. Major Brooks. What's the situation? Security briefing, ma'am. Classified. The president requested you specifically. I nod. Give me 1 minute. He steps back, waiting at parade rest. I turn to face my father. Thomas Callahan's face has drained of color. His mouth opens, closes. No sound comes out. The crowd is dead silent except for the helicopter. I'm sorry I have to leave your party, Dad. My voice is steady, professional. Duty calls. He finally finds words. Admiral? You're an admiral. Made Rear Admiral 2 years ago. You would have known if you'd read the letters I sent. Mom's crying. Quiet tears, her hand over her mouth. David's frozen, phone's still recording, but his smirk is gone. I look at each of them, these people I've spent decades trying to impress, trying to make proud, trying to be enough for. And I realize something. I don't need to try anymore. The cake looks delicious, I say to Mom. Save me a piece. She nods, unable to speak. I turn to the Major. I'm ready. We cross the lawn together, the crowd parting silently. Behind me, I hear whispers starting, shock rippling through the guests. At the helicopter door, I pause and look back one more time. Dad's still standing by the cake table, frozen. The man who spent years telling me I wasn't enough, that I'd made the wrong choice, that I'd fail eventually. I don't say anything else. Don't need to. I board the helicopter. Major Brooks climbs in after me, and the crew chief slides the door shut. The rotors accelerate, and we lift off smoothly. Through the window, I watch the party below shrink. Dad's still standing in the same spot, looking up. I turn away and buckle in. Apologies for the dramatic entrance, Admiral, Brooks says, handing me a briefing folder. The president wanted you there ASAP. No apology necessary, Major. Sometimes dramatic is exactly what's needed. I grew up in the house we just left, though it looked different then. Smaller. Shabbier. Before David's money transformed it into something worthy of magazine spreads. My room was at the back, overlooking the woods. David's was larger, at the front, but that seemed normal. He was older, the son, the heir to whatever Dad was building. I didn't mind. I had my books, my projects, my dreams of something bigger than this small town. Dad ran a regional distribution company. Not glamorous, but solid. He worked long hours, came home tired, smelled like warehouses and coffee. He had pride, though. Pride in his business, his reputation, his position in the community. And he had plans for David. From the time David could walk, Dad was grooming him, teaching him about inventory, contracts, customer relations, taking him to the warehouse on Saturdays, introducing him to clients. "This is my son," he'd say. "He's going to run this place someday." I'd tag along sometimes, quiet, observing. Dad never introduced me the same way. If clients asked, he'd say, "That's Sarah. Say hello, Sarah." I said hello. I didn't resent David. It wasn't his fault he was born first, born male, born into Dad's expectations. David was actually kind to me most of the time. Let me hang around his friends, helped me with homework, taught me to throw a football properly. But the difference in how Dad treated us was impossible to miss. When David brought home B's, Dad celebrated. When I brought home straight A's, Dad nodded. "Good. Keep it up." When David made varsity baseball, Dad attended every game, cheering from the stands. When I made academic decathlon captain, Dad said he'd try to make the competition, but business always came up. Mom noticed. I think she tried to compensate sometimes, giving me extra attention, praising my achievements privately. But she never contradicted Dad, never pushed back against the imbalance. That wasn't her way. "Your father has a lot of pressure," she'd say. "He's building something for all of us." I accepted that explanation for years. I tried to be understanding, to not be demanding, to prove I was worth his attention through sheer excellence. I became the responsible one. Did my chores without being asked, kept my room immaculate, helped Mom with dinner every night. I tutored other students, volunteered at the library, joined every academic club available. David coasted. Not badly. He was smart enough when he applied himself. But he didn't have to try as hard because Dad's approval came automatically. I earned scholarships. Full ride to college, my choice of schools. I'd worked for it, spent 3 years maintaining perfect grades while working part-time at the grocery store, building the kind of resume that made admissions officers pay attention. Dad's response, "That's good. Saves us money. David's going to need help with his business degree." I chose the Naval Academy. Not to spite him, though I'd be lying if I said his reaction wasn't part of it. I chose it because I wanted purpose. Structure. A place where merit actually mattered. Dad was furious. "You're throwing away your potential," he said. "You could do anything and you choose this?" Following orders, living in barracks, getting shipped off to God knows where. It's called service, Dad. It's called wasting your life. The military will chew you up and spit you out, Sarah. Mark my words. Mom cried, but didn't argue with him. David looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. I went anyway. The academy was hard. Brutal, even. Plebe summer broke people stronger than me. But I survived. More than survived, I excelled. Found out I was good at leadership, good at making hard decisions under pressure, good at bringing teams together. I wrote letters home every week. Told them about my classes, my training, my growing understanding of what it meant to serve something larger than yourself. Dad's responses were sporadic. One paragraph, usually about David's accomplishments. David made Dean's List. David got an internship with a Fortune 500 company. David's dating a nice girl from a good family. My graduation from the academy should have been a proud moment. I stood in front of Bancroft Hall with my classmates, tossing our covers into the air, officially commissioned as ensigns in the United States Navy. Mom came. David came, brought his new girlfriend. Dad found an excuse. Business emergency. He sent a card. Congratulations. Make us proud. I told myself it didn't matter. I was part of something bigger now. I had brothers and sisters in arms who understood, who celebrated with me, who had my back. But it did matter. It mattered a lot. My first deployment, I sent Dad a detailed letter about crossing the Atlantic, seeing Gibraltar, learning to navigate by stars and instruments and instinct. I told him about the responsibility of standing watch, knowing that my decisions affected everyone aboard. He sent back 3 sentences. Glad you're safe. David got engaged. We're planning a big wedding. I went to the wedding. Stood in the reception line in my dress whites, feeling like an exotic bird in a room full of business suits. People asked polite questions about my service, then moved on quickly to congratulate David and his bride. Dad gave a toast. Talked about watching David grow up, teaching him the business, seeing him become a man. I always knew my son would make me proud, he said. But he's exceeded every expectation. He didn't mention me once. I left early. Drove back to base with my dress whites carefully hung in the back seat, feeling like a fool for hoping it would be different. Years passed. I made lieutenant commander, got selected for command school. Each promotion, each achievement, I dutifully reported home. Dad's interest never increased. But when his business hit trouble, a bad investment, a contract that fell through, cash flow problems, he called. Sarah, honey. His voice was strained, careful. I hate to ask, but things are tight right now. Just temporarily. If you could spare anything. I sent a check. Most of my savings, actually. Money I'd been setting aside for a down payment on a house someday. Thanks, sweetheart. I'll pay you back soon. He never did. 6 months later, business turned around. Dad credited David with helping him restructure, with bringing in new clients, with saving the company. David was living in California at the time. I was the one who'd sent money. I was the one who'd called every week to check on him, who'd listened to his stress, who'd offered what help I could. But David got the credit. I could have said something. Should have, maybe. But what was the point? It wouldn't change anything. Dad saw what he wanted to see. So I stopped trying to make him see differently. I focused on my career instead. Made commander, then captain. Got command of my own vessel. Led men and women through deployments, through storms, through situations where the wrong decision could mean lives lost. I was good at it. Better than good. My fitness reports reflected that. My commanding officers recognized it. The Navy recognized it. Just not Dad. Mom would call sometimes, ask how I was doing. I'd tell her about my work, carefully, the parts one could share. She'd listen, make encouraging noises. Then she'd tell me about David's latest success, and I'd know that was really what she wanted to talk about. Your father's so proud of David, she'd say. Building an empire. She never said Dad was proud of me. Eventually, I stopped expecting her to. The years accumulated. Promotions, deployments, commendations. I built a career that meant something, that served something beyond myself. I earned respect from admirals and enlisted sailors alike. I became someone people looked up to, trusted, followed. But I never became someone my father saw. And the worst part? I kept trying. Kept showing up for holidays, kept sending cards, kept answering his rare calls. Kept hoping that maybe, somehow, he'd finally see me. Looking back now, from this helicopter, I see how foolish that was. Not because he didn't deserve my efforts, but because I deserved better than to keep offering them to someone who'd never value them. The briefing lasts 3 hours. Crisis in the Mediterranean, American interests threatened, need for experienced command presence to navigate delicate diplomatic and military waters. The president, a woman I've met twice before, shakes my hand afterward. I know this interrupts your personal time, Admiral, but you're the one I trust for this. That's why I'm here, Madam President. Afterward, I have 30 minutes before wheels up for the situation overseas. I find a quiet office, borrow a computer, check my messages. There are 17 missed calls from my family. Dad called 12 times. David 3 times. Mom twice. There are texts too. From David, Sarah, you're an admiral? From Mom, sweetheart, please call. Your father needs to talk to you. From Dad, Sarah, call me. We need to discuss this. I sit there, looking at those messages, and I realize something. I don't need to call back. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Not because I'm angry, though I was, earlier, standing on that lawn listening to him mock me. But anger has faded, leaving something clearer behind. Clarity. For years, I've been seeking approval from someone incapable of giving it. Not because he's a bad person, he's not really. Just limited. Narrow in his vision of success, unable to value anything that doesn't fit his specific framework. And I've spent decades contorting myself, trying to fit that framework, trying to translate my achievements into terms he'd understand. But I don't need to do that anymore. I've spent 22 years proving myself to people who matter. People who understand what service means. Who value leadership, courage, sacrifice. Who see me clearly and respect what they see. I don't need my father's approval to know I've built something worthwhile. I don't need his pride to feel proud of myself. I think about the girl I was, growing up in that house. The one who worked so hard for scraps of attention. Who made herself small and accommodating, hoping that would make her more lovable. I think about how she'd feel, knowing she became an admiral. knowing she earned respect from the President of the United States, knowing she built exactly the life she dreamed of, even when everyone doubted her. She'd be amazed, proud, maybe a little vindicated. I hope she'd also be relieved to finally stop seeking approval from someone determined not to give it. There's a knock on the door. Major Brooks. 10 minutes, ma'am. Thank you, Major. I close the messages without responding. I'll deal with my family later, or not. Right now, I have a mission. Right now, I have people depending on me. A crew waiting for orders. A situation that requires clear thinking and steady leadership. This is where I belong. Not on that lawn, listening to dismissive jokes. Not in that house, trying to make myself visible to someone who's chosen not to see me. Here. In uniform. In command. Making decisions that matter. I stand, straighten my uniform, and head for the airstrip. The deployment lasts 3 months. Tense negotiations, careful positioning of forces, endless meetings with diplomats and military leaders from a dozen nations. The situation resolves without shots fired, without American casualties, without international incident. The President calls it a textbook operation. My commanding officer adds another commendation to my file. I get back stateside in mid-December. The base is decorated for holidays, garlands on the gates, wreaths on doors. There's a welcome home ceremony, but it's low-key. My staff knows I prefer it that way. I check my messages once I'm in my office. The calls from my family stopped after the first week. There are a few emails instead. From David, Dad's pretty shaken up. Maybe call him. From Mom, hope you're safe, wherever you are. Love you. From Dad, nothing directly to me. But Mom forwarded something he sent her. I can't believe Sarah let me look like a fool in front of everyone. After all I did for her. I read that line 3 times. After all I did for her. Raised me, yes. Fed me, housed me, paid for things before my scholarships kicked in. Basic parental responsibilities, fulfilled adequately if not warmly. But what did he do for me beyond that? What encouragement did he offer? What pride did he show? What support did he give when I chose a path different from his expectations? He wanted me to feel grateful, to stay bound to him through obligation. But obligation without respect isn't a healthy foundation for any relationship. I don't respond to the email. Christmas approaches. Mom calls, asks if I'm coming home for the holidays. I don't think so, Mom. I have duty over New Year's, and I need to catch up on things here. Your father wants to see you. Her voice is careful. He wants to talk. About what? Silence. Then, quietly, he's struggling with what happened. With finding out about your rank from everyone else. He thinks you deliberately kept it from him. I wrote him, Mom. Multiple letters. Sent official announcements. He never responded. He says he never got them. Then he didn't read them. There's a difference. More silence. Please, Sarah. He's still your father. And there it is. The appeal to duty, to family obligation, to the idea that blood relations trump all else. I love you, Mom. But I'm not coming for Christmas. Not this year. She cries. Soft, guilty-making tears. I've heard them before. I need to go, I say gently. I'll call you after the holidays. I hang up before she can protest further. David calls an hour later. Come on, Sarah. Don't be like this. Like what? Punishing Dad for being Dad. Yeah, he was an ass at the party. Yeah, he should have paid more attention over the years. But you're being dramatic now. Dramatic. Because enforcing boundaries is dramatic. Because expecting basic respect is asking too much. David, Dad spent my entire life telling me I was making a mistake. He mocked my career at every opportunity. He compared me unfavorably to you constantly. And when I finally had visible proof of success, his response was to feel embarrassed that he looked foolish. He's proud of you. He just doesn't know how to show it. No, David. He's not proud. He's shocked. There's a difference. Jesus, Sarah. He's our father. Families forgive each other. Forgiveness goes both ways. Has he apologized? Pause. He's old school. You know he doesn't do apologies. Then he doesn't do reconciliation either. So that's it? You're just cutting us off. I'm not cutting you off, David. You and I are fine. But I'm done trying to earn approval from someone who's determined not to give it. I'm done making myself smaller so he feels bigger. I'm done. David sighs. Mom's going to be devastated if you're not here for Christmas. Mom had 22 years to stand up for me. She chose not to. That was her choice. This is mine. I hang up. The guilt tries to settle in. The voice that says I'm being too harsh, too unforgiving, too stubborn. The voice that sounds suspiciously like Dad. But underneath the guilt is something else. Something lighter. Relief. For the first time in my life, I'm not performing for my father. Not trying to prove anything. Not hoping this time will be different. I'm just living my life on my own terms, answerable to my own standards. It feels like breathing after being underwater. Christmas comes and goes. I volunteer for duties so married sailors can spend time with their families. I eat turkey in the officers' mess, exchange gifts with my staff, call Mom on Christmas evening for exactly 15 minutes. She doesn't mention my absence. Neither do I. January brings routine back. Training exercises, administrative duties, planning for next quarter's deployments. I attend meetings at the Pentagon, give input on strategic initiatives, mentor junior officers navigating their own career paths. My life continues, full and purposeful, without my family's validation. I don't think about them much. When I do, it's without the old ache of longing. Just a distant awareness that they exist, somewhere, living their lives as I live mine. In February, Mom sends a card. Valentine's Day, which she always marks. Inside, her careful handwriting, missing you. The house feels empty without you. I appreciate the sentiment. I don't respond. In March, David's wife has another baby. Mom emails photos. I send a gift, a generous check, a congratulatory card. I don't visit. In April, I get word that Dad's business is struggling again. Something about contracts lost, clients moving to competitors, cash flow issues. Mom calls. Doesn't quite ask for help but mentions how stressed Dad is, how the doctors are worried about his blood pressure, how David's doing what he can but has his own company to run. I listen sympathetically. I don't offer money. Sarah, Mom says finally, I know you're upset with your father. But he's not well. He needs family right now. He has family, Mom. He has you and David. You're his daughter. I've always been his daughter. That didn't matter to him when things were good. That's not fair. Neither was he. We end the call without resolution. I don't feel guilty this time. Just tired. Tired of the same patterns, the same appeals, the same expectation that I should sacrifice my boundaries for the sake of family peace. Peace for whom? Not for me. In May, I get promoted again. Rear Admiral, upper half. 2 stars. It's a significant jump, one that puts me in the top tier of naval leadership. The ceremony is formal, attended by high-ranking officials, fellow officers, dignitaries. The Secretary of the Navy pins on my stars personally, makes a speech about exceptional service and distinguished leadership. I stand there, ramrod straight, feeling the weight of those stars and everything they represent. Afterward, there's a reception. People congratulate me, shake my hand, tell me stories about serving under my command or hearing about my reputation. Mom texts, "Congratulations on your promotion." That's it. No call, no card, no acknowledgement of what this achievement means. David doesn't contact me at all. Neither does Dad. I could be hurt. Part of me is a little. The part that's still that girl seeking approval, hoping this time will be different. But mostly, I'm just done. I've built a life they can't comprehend and won't celebrate. I've earned respect they'll never give. I've become someone they refuse to see. And that's okay. Because I see myself. My colleagues see me. The people I lead see me. The Navy sees me. That's enough. Summer passes. I command exercises in the Pacific, consult on strategic planning, testify before congressional committees about naval readiness. My days are full. My work is meaningful. My reputation grows. I date someone briefly, another officer, smart and capable. It doesn't work out, not because of any particular problem, but because we're both married to our careers. We part on good terms. I buy a house finally. Small but mine, near the water, with a view of the harbor. I furnish it slowly, carefully, choosing things I actually like instead of what's practical or expected. I hang photos of my crew, my ship, ceremonies, and deployments. I frame my commendations. I display my academy diploma, my commission, my promotion certificates. My walls tell a story of achievement and service. They reflect who I am, not who I was trying to be. In September, I get an email from Dad. Subject line, congratulations. I stare at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside, 3 sentences. Heard about your promotion to 2-star Admiral. That's quite an achievement. Guess I was wrong about the military. That's it. No apology for decades of dismissal. No acknowledgement of how his treatment affected me. No real attempt at connection. Just guess I was wrong. Too little. Too late. I read it twice, then file it away. I don't respond. In October, Mom calls. Did you see your father's email? I did. He's trying, Sarah. That's hard for him. I'm sure it is. Can't you meet him halfway? Mom, I spent 22 years meeting him more than halfway. I spent 22 years trying to earn basic respect and recognition. He gave me neither. He's sorry. He's just too proud to say it. Then he's not actually sorry. He's your father. And I'm his daughter. That's a two-way relationship. It requires effort from both sides. You're being so cold, Sarah. Cold. Because having boundaries is cold. Because requiring reciprocity is unreasonable. I'm being clear, I say. There's a difference. He's getting older. What if something happens and you regret this? I might regret it. Or I might not. But I can't build my choices around potential future guilt. I have to live my life now, based on what's actually healthy for me. Mom sighs, a sound heavy with disappointment. I raised you to be better than this. That stings as it's meant to. But I push through it. You raised me to be loyal, Mom. And I was. For decades. But you also raised me to stand up for myself, whether you intended to or not. You raised me by example, by showing me what happens when you stay silent, when you don't advocate for yourself, when you accept less than you deserve. I learned from watching you. I just chose to do things differently. Silence on the other end. I love you, I continue, softer now. But I can't keep sacrificing my peace for Dad's pride. I can't keep making myself smaller so he feels bigger. That's not love. That's not family. That's just dysfunction. I don't know what to say to you anymore. Her voice breaks slightly. You don't have to say anything, Mom. You just have to understand that I'm making choices for myself now. Not against Dad. Not against you. For myself. We end the call quietly, without resolution, without the warmth that used to characterize our conversations. It hurts. But it's also necessary. In November, I'm asked to speak at the Naval Academy's graduation. Full circle, standing where I once stood, addressing the newest ensigns preparing to take their oaths. I talk about service, about leadership, about the weight of responsibility and the privilege of command. I talk about staying true to your values even when it's difficult, about earning respect through integrity and competence. I don't talk about my family, but they're present in everything I say, in the lessons I learned from their absence as much as from their presence. The graduates listen intently. Afterward, several approach me with questions, with thanks, with the bright-eyed eagerness of people beginning a journey they can't yet fully comprehend. I was them once. Hopeful, determined, still believing that if I just worked hard enough, everyone would see my worth. Now I know better. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone is capable of seeing it. But that doesn't make it any less real. In December, Christmas approaches again. This year, Mom doesn't ask if I'm coming home. She just sends a card with a brief note, thinking of you always. Love, Mom. I send one back, love you too. Hope the holidays are peaceful. We've reached a détente, she and I. Not close, not the relationship we once had, but civil. Respectful of boundaries. Maybe that's all it can be now. David calls on Christmas Eve. He's been quiet for months, and I'm surprised to hear from him. Hey, Sarah. David. Merry Christmas. Yeah, you too. He pauses. Listen, I've been thinking about what you said. About how Dad treated you. And you're right. I saw it happening, and I didn't say anything. I let it happen because it was easier for me, because I was the one getting the attention. That wasn't fair to you. I sit down slowly. This is unexpected. I'm sorry, he continues. I should have stood up for you. Should have told Dad he was being an ass. Should have. I don't know. Been a better brother. David, no, let me finish. You were right to step back. Right to set boundaries. I've watched you these past months, living your life, not apologizing for it, and I've realized how much courage that takes. More courage than I've ever had. My throat tightens. Thank you for saying that. Dad's never going to change, Sarah. You know that, right? He's too set in his ways, too proud to admit he was wrong about anything significant. You could cure cancer, and he'd find a way to minimize it. I know. So I guess what I'm saying is, I get it. I get why you're not coming around. And I don't blame you. We talk for another 20 minutes. Really talk, for the first time in years. About our childhood, about the patterns we both saw but interpreted differently, about the choices we've made as adults. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. You're still my sister, David says before we hang up. That matters to me, even if it didn't seem like it before. You're still my brother, I reply. That hasn't changed. After the call, I sit in my house by the harbor, watching the lights reflect on the water and feel something shift inside. Not forgiveness for Dad, that might never come or might come slowly, partially, in ways I can't predict. But acceptance. Acceptance that some relationships have limits, that some people can't give what you need, that it's okay to step back from dynamics that diminish you. And underneath the acceptance, peace. The calendar turns to a new year. I'm 40 now, 2 decades into a distinguished career, with more ahead if I choose to continue. I attend high-level briefings at the Pentagon, consult with allies overseas, make decisions that affect thousands of personnel. I mentor junior officers, advocate for improved conditions for enlisted sailors, push for strategic innovations in naval doctrine. My work matters. My leadership matters. My voice carries weight in rooms where national security is decided. This is what I've built. This is who I've become. In February, I'm invited to speak at a leadership conference. Military and civilian leaders from across the country discussing challenges and best practices. I'm on a panel about navigating organizational dynamics and maintaining integrity under pressure. Someone asks, how do you handle situations where your values conflict with those in positions of authority over you? I think about my father. About years of navigating his dismissal while trying to maintain relationship. About finally choosing myself over his approval. You have to decide what you're willing to compromise and what you're not, I say. Early in my career, I believed that persistence and excellence would eventually win over anyone's skepticism. I thought if I just proved myself thoroughly enough, everyone would come around. The audience leans in, attentive. But that's not always true. Some people are invested in their initial assessment of you. Changing that assessment would require them to admit they were wrong, and for some personalities, that's impossible. So you have to make a choice. Keep performing for an audience that refuses to applaud, or redirect your energy toward people and environments that recognize your value. How do you know when to stop trying? Someone asks. When the cost of continuing exceeds the benefit. When you realize you're sacrificing your integrity, your peace, or your self-respect for the approval of someone who's demonstrated they won't give it. That calculation is different for everyone. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I doing this because it's healthy and reciprocal, or because I'm afraid of what it means if I stop? The room is quiet. I can tell the question resonates beyond just professional contexts. The hardest boundaries to set are often with people we love, I continue. Family, longtime friends, mentors. Because we want to believe that loyalty and persistence will eventually change things. But sometimes the most loving thing for them and for yourself is to step back and stop participating in a dynamic that diminishes both of you. After the panel, several people approach me privately. They share stories of their own difficult relationships, their own struggles with boundaries, their own journeys toward choosing themselves. I listen, offer what perspective I can. And I'm reminded that the lessons I learned on my father's lawn aren't just about him and me. They're universal struggles, played out in families and workplaces and communities everywhere. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's survival. In March, I receive an unexpected package. No return address, but the postmark is from my hometown. Inside, a letter and a photograph. The photo is old, faded. Me at maybe 7 or 8, standing next to Dad in the warehouse. I'm wearing oversized work gloves, holding a clipboard, looking up at him with absolute adoration. He's mid-laugh, hand on my shoulder, caught in a moment of genuine warmth. I don't remember this day. Don't remember him laughing with me like that, including me in his world. But apparently it happened. At least once. The letter is from Dad. His handwriting shaky, age or emotion, I can't tell. Sarah, I found this photo in an old box. I'd forgotten about it. You used to come to the warehouse sometimes when you were little, before David got old enough to take an interest. You'd follow me around, asking questions about everything. I called you my little supervisor. I don't know when I stopped seeing you. When you became the daughter I didn't know how to talk to instead of the little girl who thought I hung the moon. Maybe when you started choosing things I didn't understand. Maybe when you stopped needing me the way you used to. I'm not good at apologies. Never have been. Your mother tells me I should say sorry for how I treated you, for the things I said at my party and all the years before. She's probably right. I was proud of you. I am proud of you. I just didn't know how to show it when you were doing things so different from what I knew. It felt like you were leaving, choosing something else over family, over me. I know that's not what you were doing. But that's how it felt. I handled it badly. Pushed you away instead of trying to understand. Made jokes instead of asking questions. Compared you to David because his path made sense to me and yours didn't. An admiral. 2 stars. The president calling for you personally. I spent weeks after that party trying to understand how I missed it. How I didn't see what you were becoming. But I did miss it. Because I wasn't looking. Because I decided early on that your choice was wrong, and I never reconsidered that decision even when evidence piled up against it. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me your time or your forgiveness or your presence. You gave me all of that for years, and I squandered it. I'm sending this because I found the photo and remembered who we used to be to each other. Before I ruined it. Before my pride got in the way of my love. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. Finally. Too late, maybe. But I see you. I'm sorry, Sarah. For all of it. Dad, I read the letter 3 times. Each time, different emotions surface. Anger at how long this took. Sadness for the years we lost. Relief that he finally understands. Wariness that this might be temporary. And underneath it all, grief. For what we could have been and weren't. For the relationship we should have had but didn't. I set the letter aside and pick up the photo. Look at that little girl with her oversized gloves and her adoring gaze. She deserved better than she got. But she became something extraordinary anyway. I sit with the letter for days. Don't respond immediately because I need to figure out what I actually feel, what I actually want. Do I want reconciliation? Do I want to rebuild a relationship with someone who took 40 years to see me? I don't know yet. Maybe, maybe not. But I know this, if we rebuild, it will be on terms that respect us both. Not me performing for his approval. Not him grudgingly acknowledging my existence. Something real, equal, mutual. Or nothing at all. Both options are acceptable now. That's the difference between now and before. I'm not desperate for his love anymore. I'm not willing to accept crumbs and call them a feast. If he wants relationship, he has to show up for it. Really show up. Consistently. Over time. 1 letter isn't enough. But it's a start. In April, I call him. He answers on the 2nd ring, and his voice is uncertain. Sarah? Hi, Dad. Silence. Then, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either. More silence. Neither of us is good at this, at being vulnerable, at naming what we feel. I got your letter, I say finally. And the photo. I meant what I wrote. I know. I believe you. But it's not enough. He says it like a statement, not a question. It's a start. But no, it's not enough. Not yet. What would be enough? Fair question. Hard to answer. Time, I say. Consistency. Actually knowing me instead of the version of me you've imagined. Respecting my choices even when you don't understand them. Treating me like someone whose life has value even though it looks different from what you wanted. I can try. Trying isn't enough either, Dad. Either you do it or you don't. He's quiet for a long moment. You've gotten tough. I've always been tough. You just didn't notice. A sound that might be a laugh. Might be a sob. Fair enough. We talk for 20 minutes. Stilted, careful, neither of us sure of the ground we're standing on. But we talk. Before we hang up, he says, I'd like to see you. When you have time. If you're willing. Maybe I say, let's see how things go. That's fair. It's not a resolution. Not forgiveness, not full reconciliation, not the happy ending that stories usually promise. But it's honest. And it's a start. The Black Hawk lifts off from my father's lawn, carrying me away from the party, away from the humiliation, away from years of trying to be enough for someone who refused to see me. Below, The guests scatter in the rotor wash. Dad stands frozen by his cake table, face drained of color, finally understanding what he missed. I turn away from the window and focus forward. Major Brooks hands me the briefing folder. The situation is developing rapidly, ma'am. The president wants your strategic assessment before deciding on military response. I flip open the folder, scanning the intelligence reports. Forces positioned, threats assessed, diplomatic channels identified. Complex, delicate, requiring exactly the kind of careful judgment I've spent 2 decades developing. How long until we're airborne to the Mediterranean? 90 minutes, Admiral. Your staff is already assembled. I nod, already mentally shifting into command mode. This is what I do. This is who I am. Not the daughter trying to earn approval, but the officer trusted with national security decisions. The helicopter banks, and I catch one last glimpse of the party below. People are crowding around Dad now, probably asking questions, probably stunned by what just happened. I don't feel triumphant. Don't feel vindicated or satisfied by a shock. I just feel clear. For years, I measured my worth against his inability to see it. I made his approval the metric for my success. I let his dismissal define my value. But worth isn't determined by who refuses to acknowledge it. Success isn't measured by who chooses not to celebrate it. I built something extraordinary. Not for him. Not despite him. Just built it. Because it was my calling, my path, my choice. And whether he ever acknowledges that or not doesn't change its reality. The helicopter climbs higher. The estate shrinks below us, becoming just another property in a landscape of properties. Insignificant from this altitude. Just one small piece of a much larger world. My world is bigger now. My life is fuller. My purpose is clearer. I spent decades seeking his approval, trying to translate my achievements into terms he'd understand, hoping he'd finally see me. I don't need that anymore. Because I see myself. I see the little girl who dreamed of something more, who refused to be confined by others' expectations, who chose the harder path because it called to her. I see the young ensign who learned leadership through trial and error, who earned respect through competence and integrity, who never compromised her values for easier advancement. I see the commander who held lives in her hands and never took that responsibility lightly, who made hard decisions with clear eyes, who led with both strength and compassion. I see the admiral who earned 2 stars through decades of exceptional service, who sits in rooms where national policy is shaped, whose judgment is trusted by the highest levels of government. That's who I am. That's what I built. And it doesn't need his validation to be real. The briefing folder contains details of ships, forces, diplomatic complications. I absorb the information quickly, my mind already working through scenarios and strategies. This is what matters. This moment, this mission, this responsibility. Not the party behind me. Not the approval I'll never get. Not the family dynamics I can't fix. This. Major Brooks glances over. You all right, Admiral? I close the folder and meet his eyes steadily. I'm exactly where I need to be, Major. He nods, understanding in a way civilians might not. This is the life we chose. The life we built. The life we earned. Sometimes the best answer isn't confrontation. Isn't the dramatic speech or the satisfying comeback. Isn't forcing people to see what they're determined to miss. Sometimes the best answer is simply living in a way that makes ridicule impossible. Being so undeniably successful, so clearly excellent, so thoroughly respected that dismissal becomes absurd. Not for revenge. Not to prove anything. Just because that's who you are. The helicopter levels out, heading toward the airfield where a larger aircraft waits to carry me overseas. Toward crisis management, toward command decisions, toward the work I've spent my career preparing for. My phone buzzes. Text from David. Holy shit, Sarah. Admiral. I silence the phone without responding. Later. Maybe. Or maybe not. Right now, I have a job to do. The president is waiting. My crew is waiting. The mission is waiting. And I'm ready. I've always been ready. I've always been capable. I've always been exactly who I am now. The rank just made it visible to people who refused to look. But I knew. My colleagues knew. The people I served with knew. The Navy knew. And in the end, that's what matters. Not the approval I sought for decades, but the respect I earned. The integrity I maintained. The life I built on my own terms. The helicopter carries me forward, toward the next challenge, the next mission, the next moment where my judgment and leadership will make a difference. Behind me, my father finally understands what he missed. Ahead of me, a world where I'm seen clearly, valued appropriately, respected fully. I don't look back. There's nothing there I need anymore. The rotors beat steadily against the sky, carrying me toward what matters. Toward purpose. Toward mission. Toward the life I chose and the person I became. Admiral Sarah Callahan. Not playing soldier. Not waiting to be chewed up and spit out. Just serving. Leading. Excelling. Being exactly who I always was, with or without his approval. The party fades into memory. The humiliation becomes just another moment in a long story, significant only for what came after. What came after is everything. The work. The rank. The respect. The life built on my own terms. That's the real revenge. Not the dramatic entrance or the shocked faces, but the life itself. The undeniable, excellent, purposeful life. The one he said I couldn't build. The one I built anyway. The ceremony takes place on a crisp October morning, 18 months after that birthday party. The naval base is dressed in full formal regalia, flags snapping in the autumn breeze, honor guard assembled in precise formation. I stand at attention as the Secretary of the Navy reads my promotion citation. 3 stars now. Vice Admiral. One of the highest ranks in the service, achieved by fewer than 100 officers at any given time. The crowd is substantial. Fellow officers, dignitaries, members of Congress, colleagues from joint operations across all branches. People who've worked with me, served under me, witnessed my career firsthand. And in the third row, looking uncomfortable in a suit that doesn't quite fit, my father. I didn't invite him. Mom asked if she could bring him. I said yes, though I wasn't sure it was the right choice. David's here too, with his family. Mom's in the front row where family traditionally sits, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The secretary pins the 3rd star on my shoulder board. The weight is barely noticeable physically, but symbolically it feels enormous. Vice Admiral Sarah Callahan, he announces, and the crowd applauds. I give my remarks. Brief, professional, focused on service and the people who make the mission possible. I thank my mentors, my crew, the sailors and officers who've served alongside me. I talk about the privilege of leadership and the responsibility it carries. I don't mention my family. That's not what this day is about. Afterward, there's a reception. People congratulate me, share stories, make jokes about how I'll handle even more responsibility. I move through the crowd with practiced ease, this role as familiar now as breathing. Mom finds me first, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So proud. Thanks, Mom. She pulls back, studying my face. 3 stars. My daughter, the Vice Admiral. I never imagined. She stops, tears threatening again. I know. David's next, shaking my hand formally before pulling me into a quick embrace. Congratulations, Admiral. He grins. I'm going to use your rank now every chance I get. My sister, the Vice Admiral, says. Going to be insufferable about it. You already are insufferable. True. But now I have better material. His kids hang back, shy around all the uniforms. I crouch down to their level, show them the stars, let them touch the braid on my sleeve. They giggle and warm up slightly. Then Dad approaches. He's aged in the past 18 months. More gray in his hair, lines deeper around his eyes. He walks slower, carries himself with less certainty. We've talked occasionally since that first phone call. Stilted conversations, careful exchanges, neither of us quite sure how to bridge the gap. He's made efforts, remembered my birthday, sent a card when I got back from deployment, even called once just to ask how I was doing. Small things, but consistent. Sarah. He stops a few feet away, like he's not sure if he's allowed closer. Dad. Congratulations. 3 stars. He shakes his head. That's remarkable. Thank you. Silence stretches between us. People flow around us, conversations and laughter filling the space. I don't know what to say, he admits finally. I've been practicing in my head all morning and I still don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Your being here is enough. He looks at me, really looks, and I see something I've never seen before in his eyes, uncertainty. Thomas Callahan, who always had an opinion, always had an answer, looking at his daughter and genuinely not knowing how to proceed. I wasted so much time, he says quietly. Wasted so much time being wrong, being stubborn, being too proud to admit I didn't understand. Yes, you did. He winces slightly, but doesn't argue. I'm trying to do better. Trying to understand. But I don't know if I can ever make up for you can't, I say, not unkindly. You can't make up for it. What's done is done. But you can do better going forward. You can be present now. You can actually see me now. I do see you. His voice cracks slightly. I see you, Sarah. Finally. And what I see is extraordinary. Something in my chest loosens. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not absolution. But acknowledgement. Real acknowledgement from someone who's never been good at giving it. I need you to understand something, Dad. I'm not going to go backward. I'm not going to make myself smaller or more palatable or easier to understand. This is who I am. This is who I've always been. You either accept that or you don't. I accept it. I do. He pauses. I want to know you. The real you, not the version I made up in my head. I want to understand your world, your work. I want to hear about your life without dismissing it or comparing it to something else. I want. He struggles for words. I want to be your father. Actually be it, not just have the title. That's going to take time. And effort. Real effort. I know. And I'm not going to chase you for it. If you want a relationship with me, you have to show up for it. Consistently. I understand. We stand there, two people who share blood and history but have been strangers for decades, trying to figure out if there's a path forward. I'm going to ask you questions sometimes, he says. About your work, about the Navy, about things I don't understand. And I need you to be patient with me because I'm genuinely ignorant about most of it. I can do that. And I'm going to mess up. Say the wrong thing, make assumptions. I'm going to be learning, and that means mistakes. As long as you're actually learning from them. He nods. I will. I promise I will. A promise from Thomas Callahan. I don't know if it means anything yet, but it's more than I've ever gotten before. Okay, I say. We'll see how it goes. That's fair. He extends his hand. Formal, uncertain. I take it. Shake once, firmly. Congratulations again, Sarah. You've built something incredible. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. So am I. He nods and steps back, returning to where Mom's waiting. She takes his arm, gives me a small smile over her shoulder. David appears at my elbow. That looked intense. It was. Think he means it? The trying to be better thing. I think he wants to mean it. Whether he can actually do it remains to be seen. And if he can't? I watched Dad across the room, talking to one of my colleagues who's apparently explaining something about naval operations. Dad's listening, actually listening, asking questions. Then I'll be fine, I say. I've built a life that doesn't require his approval. If he wants to be part of it, genuinely part of it, there's room. But I'm not going to shrink that life to accommodate him anymore. David's quiet for a moment. You've changed. These past couple years. I don't know. More solid, somehow. I stopped performing. Stopped trying to be what other people needed me to be and just started being who I am. It suits you. The reception continues around us. I'm pulled away for more photos, more conversations, more congratulations. It's hours before the crowd thins and I can finally step outside for air. The sun's setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples. I stand on the steps of the officers' club, 3 stars on my shoulders, looking out over the base that's been home for so many years. This morning, before the ceremony, I visited the academy. Walked the same paths I walked as a plebe, stood where I stood at graduation, remembered that young ensign who had so much to prove. I wanted to tell her, you're going to make it. More than make it. You're going to exceed every expectation, including your own. You're going to become someone extraordinary, someone respected, someone who matters. I wanted to tell her, it's going to hurt sometimes. People you love are going to disappoint you. You're going to question yourself, doubt yourself, wonder if you made the right choice. But you did. You absolutely did. I wanted to tell her, stop seeking approval from people who are determined not to give it. Stop making yourself small. Stop apologizing for being exceptional. But she had to learn that herself. Had to walk that path, make those mistakes, feel that pain. That's what shaped her into me. The door opens behind me. An aide appears. Admiral? They're ready for the formal dinner if you are. I'll be right there. He disappears back inside, and I take one more moment. One more breath of evening air, one more look at the sky, one more second of stillness before returning to duty. 3 stars. Vice Admiral. Trusted with strategic operations across entire fleets. Consulted on matters of national security. Respected by peers and subordinates alike. I built this. Not for anyone else. Not to prove anyone wrong. Just build it because it was my calling. And maybe, finally, my father sees that. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe his efforts will fade. Maybe the pattern will reassert itself. Maybe he'll prove incapable of the consistent presence he promised. If that happens, I'll survive. I'll continue. I'll thrive. Because my worth isn't dependent on his recognition. My success isn't validated by his approval. My life isn't diminished by his absence. I am Vice Admiral Sarah Callahan, United States Navy. I earned these stars through decades of exceptional service, through leadership under pressure, through integrity maintained even when it cost me. I earned respect from people who matter, trust from the highest levels of command, recognition from those who understand what service means. That's real. That's solid. That's mine. Whether my father ever fully comprehends it or not. The door opens again. Mom this time. Sarah? They're waiting for you. Coming. She pauses, studying me. You look happy. Genuinely happy. I haven't seen that look on your face in years. I am happy, Mom. Finally. Completely. I'm glad, sweetheart. You deserve to be. She goes back inside, and I follow. Back to the dinner. Back to the speeches and toasts. Back to the celebration of this milestone in a career I've built step by step, star by star. And somewhere in the crowd, my father watches. Maybe learning. Maybe trying. Maybe finally seeing. Or maybe not. Either way, I shine. That's where I'll leave it for now. If this hit home, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder. Respect isn't begged, it's earned and required. Your turn, sound off below. Have you ever been belittled by family at a big moment? What did you do? Where's your line? What's the comment or behavior that makes you walk away? If you were in my shoes at that party, what would you have said? Do you believe people like my dad can truly change, or is distance the healthiest choice? What helped you rebuild confidence after years of being minimized? Drop your story and where you're watching from in the comments. You're not alone.